Today I'm going to be watching this video. It's called Surprising Differences Between Australia and the United States. Unconventional. So interested to see what the unconventional differences are, or just the surprising differences. Always like to see the experiences of Americans in Australia, see what they think, see what impresses them. Let's check this one out.
Alright, you already know from the title, but today we're going to be talking about the differences between the US, specifically California, and Australia, specifically Melbourne, Victoria. So I recently just moved to Australia a month ago. I was in fact born here and then moved over to California when I was 8. I've had the majority of my life spent in California, but then now I've returned back to Australia, and I just want to talk about some differences that I've noticed in just the first month of being here. Just to put a disclaimer out there, these are all my opinions. That's my opinion! And my impressions of my first month of actually living in Australia. I'm not sure if everyone will notice these things. These are just some things that I noticed myself in this first month. One thing that totally surprised me, I'm actually shocked that this happens, but on the radio and in certain like clothing stores as well, they have like the not clean version of songs playing, which I just thought was like so weird, and I was like, oh my god, did they mess up? Like, you know, this music has like a bad word in it, like are they allowed to show that because it's like a public setting? Especially on the radio, they'll have like a disclaimer that comes up like before the actual like song comes on, and it's like profanity about to occur or something like that.
Is that true?
And
Have you
I
heard
was
that?
just like, oh my god, I can't believe they like play the whole song, because in America like there's no way, it's like super unprofessional.
Same in the UK actually, I don't hear
music, like,
swearing
cuss words, you know?
on songs.
One thing I noticed as soon as I got off of the airport was just how much more Melbourne spent money towards making everything look nice. And what I mean by this is like, when you're going along certain highways or you're going under bridges, the bridges are kind of aesthetically and architecturally a little bit more prettier. There's so much more of a focus on making things look more aesthetically pleasing, because in California, some of the freeways just absolutely suck. And in Australia too, they have digital signs instead of like the physical signs. So it would be like, oh, 100 kilometers per hour, and then if there's an accident, the digital signs would slow down and be flashing, where in America you're just having like a consistent, you know, 65 miles per hour, and you have to follow that, but you don't know if there's a crash further down the road and whether to avoid it or not. So I think in that regard, Australia is like a little bit safer when it comes to the road. Obviously there's crazy drivers in both countries.
Whoa. But yeah, like with regards to the actual look of the sort of aesthetic of Australian cities, like I've only been to Melbourne also, but for me it is so aesthetically beautiful. Like everything's so pristine, whether it's the grass everywhere, so perfectly kept, the buildings, like she said, even things like the bridge, taking care of them to make them look nice and modern, things like that. But if I was to compare it to Scotland, there's so much parts of Scotland. Everybody always says to me Scotland's very beautiful. Maybe if you go to the Highlands and the nature and landscapes, but in the cities, especially Glasgow where I'm from, it's very run down and just not nice to look at. But my experience of Australia, Melbourne specifically, it's just so beautiful. You can walk everywhere and everywhere just looks great. Is that the same in every Australian city? Do you think are they all very aesthetically pleasing? It's another thing, obviously you have such high quality of life in Australia, but I think something just as simple as how the place looks, being tidy, really adds to that.
But Australia has like those warning signs of like, hey, move to the left or move to the right because a car is broken down on that side. So I think that was like a really cool thing that I noticed in Australia. Another thing, if we're talking about transport as well, would be the public transport that's offered in both countries. I was from specifically like the Bay Area, so the Bay Area has like an okay public transport, but I feel like it's pretty expensive. Like anytime I would jump on the Caltrain, I found that I would be spending like $20 if I were to go through the Caltrain. And when I'm taking the train in Melbourne, it's like, yeah, it'll cost me about like $4.60 for like the same amount of time and travel. And they also have a free section of transport within the very center of the city, where when you're taking a tram between certain stops, it's completely free and you don't have to pay at all to use that transport, which I think is really cool and really fun.
Do they have that anything like that in any other Australian cities, like that tram zone where you can ride it for free? Is there anything like, yeah, the same in any of the other big Australian cities?
Thing too, I know this kind of depends on what area you're in, but Australia has like a coffee shop on like every single corner, or they'll have like 4 coffee shops like on a single corner. Like there's a center near me, like a shopping center, And I'm not even joking, there's 5 coffee shops all within the same like 500 meters of each other. It's insane. But with that, I feel like there's more of like a coffee culture in terms of like sit down and drink your coffee, where in America it's like you get your coffee and go somewhere else. It's like you would get a to-go cup. Where like in Australia, everywhere that you're going, if you're having it like for here instead of takeaway, like you have a like, you know, a mug or like a ceramic mug. Most places in America I feel like only do the to-go cup. So I found that was kind of cool because it's like, you know, you sit down, you relax at a coffee shop. Rather than I feel like in America, if you go to a coffee shop, you're like studying or working. Where like in Australia here, it's a little bit more about relaxing, enjoying a coffee. It's like you sit down, you chat with somebody. So you're doing that in America
healthier
too, but I feel like
lifestyle.
there's just more of a focus on it in Australia. A big part that I think was pretty different, which California has like the win on this, would be like the weather. Melbourne weather is known for having like 4 seasons in one day. So like in the morning it'll be freezing cold, and then in the middle of the day it's like, you know, an autumn kind of like fall kind of weather, and then you maybe get like, it feels like summer and it's like super hot and it's probably like, you know, 30 degrees or more than that. Then by the end of the night you're getting like, you know, spring and it's like raining or something like that. Where I feel like the weather in California is like super consistent every day. Like if it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain for the entire day. But if it's gonna be sunny, it's gonna be sunny for the entire day. Melbourne, at least, it's like so different every day. So because of that, you have to be like dressed and ready for any single weather pattern that could come on. You have to bring like a jacket or like sweatpants, even if you know that it's gonna be like a sunny day, just in case. The weather is
I think that
so unpredictable.
I think that's one of the kind of stereotypes about Australia. Definitely being from the UK, everybody thinks Australia sunny all the time, it's like this beautiful weather, and it is most of the time. But again, somewhere like Melbourne, when I went to Melbourne and I was talking to people from there, they were telling me, yeah, the weather can be a bit like crazy. Like in one day you can have every type of weather, 4 types of weather. I've learned obviously on this channel that you can also get snow in certain parts. You can go skiing. There's like ski resorts in Melbourne. I had no idea. But yeah, tell me what you think. What's the best place for weather in Australia, and what's the worst place?
As well as talking about weather too, the sun is so much stronger here in Australia than it is in California. In California, I feel like if it's a sunny day, I can go out and get away with not wearing sunscreen. Where here, I will 100% get burned if I don't wear sunscreen and it's a sunny day. The UV is like constantly super high. The other day for my walking a half marathon video, I didn't put enough sunscreen on my arms and I literally got the worst watch tan ever. I don't know if it really shows up on video, but yeah, definitely wearing your sunscreen here in Australia is so important. They have like a whole bunch of campaigns about protecting yourself from the sun because there's a really high skin cancer risk by not wearing sunscreen. Now we're talking about slang. I'm probably gonna do a whole video on that where like I interview my family about the different kinds of slang that they use. But obviously there's a lot of different kind of terms and things that they call different items in Australia. So for example, a big one is flip-flops in California are called thongs here, but thongs in California mean like underwear. With that, there is a lot of different slang, and like sometimes when I hear other people talk about, you know, different words that I don't know the meaning of, I'm like so confused on what they're talking about. You know, I'm slowly starting to catch up to what the slang is. And on my last video, I called one of those like clip-on bags that you use for walking and stuff, I call it like a fanny pack, but apparently that's like not a good word. They call it a bum bag. So some people commented on my last video about calling it a bum bag, so that's what I'm gonna be calling it now. Another thing here too is that drinking tap water is like completely normal, and like most people drink their tap water. In America, like most people are using like a Brita filter, or they're somehow filtering their water using bottled water, but in Australia it's totally normal to drink your tap water, and most people just do it anyways. Okay, let's see how long I can go before my battery dies. Also, I feel like the money makes so much more sense here in Australia. Every single bill has its own color. The only part that kind of confuses me is when it gets to the coins, because there's like a $2 coin, a $1 coin, and then all the cents, but they don't have pennies. If you're charging someone for something and it's like $12.93, you would then round down to 90 because there's only like the 5-cent coin and not like a penny. So that was like something that I had to get used to, at least, because I'm like, wait, do I have to like round? Like I have to like think a little bit extra when I'm giving people change. Now I feel like I actually care a lot more about coins, because there's like the $1 coin and $2 coin, where in America, like the highest coin that you really have and that you use frequently would be like the 25-cent coin, like a quarter. Because of that, like I don't really care about change, but like here change actually matters because it's worth a lot more. Lastly, getting used to like Celsius instead of Fahrenheit was something to get used to, because people talk about like, oh my god, it's so hot, like it's 30 degrees. To me in Fahrenheit, 30 degrees is like freezing. Like it's below freezing. It was like definitely something to get used to, and I have to think like, okay, a 20-degree day, like what am I gonna wear for a 20-degree day? It's definitely having to get used to like that Celsius change, and I'm kind of starting to get kilometers as well. I feel like understanding like how far a kilometer is, I'm like, okay, it's a little bit less than a mile, but like not half, but like a little bit more than half, and like trying to understand that as well has been a bit of a challenge. The metric system makes more sense, like we all know that. So yeah, I think I might make a part 2 for more information on the differences between Australia and the US. Obviously I've only been here for like just over a month, so I don't know everything about the country, but I'm really excited to like get to learn more and find more differences. I think I'm gonna make a video about slang as well, so stay tuned for that. Now,
yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, so tell me what you think about that. Again, like I said, it's always cool to hear Americans talk about their life in Australia, and it's always, again, very positive. I don't even know if I've seen one American like be overly negative about their experience. Like, it just always seems to be better in every way. Tell me what you think about that video. Interesting about the Celsius to Fahrenheit. For me, Celsius just makes so much sense, obviously with the freezing point being 0. Stuff like that, it just like works, man. At Fahrenheit is just too difficult for me, man. But tell me what you think about this one and the differences. Thanks.